Calling the meeting to order at 6:04 p.m. Those in attendance are Representative Chase, Pritchie, Gardner, Chacon, and Powers. Taking up, we're going to the fourth quarter transfers first this evening. God bless you. And Representative Chase to do some reading for me. Is that possible?
Yeah, that's possible. What do you want me to read? That whole thing? Adoption of the ordinance?
No,
No, that's later.
The resolution of the fourth quarter transfer.
Oh.
Here,
There you go.
here, I got. That's what.
Here it is, right here.
Thank you.
So on the
Everybody
organize-
have it? I have extra copies.
So is this gonna be a motion? This is a motion, right?
Read resolution for.
Motion only.
All right.
Movement.
I'd like to make a motion for a resolution for FY 2022 fourth quarter transfers. Whereas the town charter provides for supplemental appropriations to adopted budgets and transfers from the contingency function during the year. And whereas the town charter also provides for the transfer of funds from one departmental function to another departmental function during the last 3 months of the fiscal year. And whereas transfers are necessary and represent unforeseen or unexpected expenditures at the time the FYE 2022 budget was adopted. Now, therefore, be it resolved that transfers totaling $104,548 be transferred from contingency number 1094 to the following general fund departments / functions and referred to the RTM for approval.
Second.
I gotta read it. So we're-
Oh, you got that?
No, we're done. Voter registration number 1003075 in the amount of $24,578 for the Democratic primary expenses. Legal services number 1006005 in the amount of $50,000 for delinquent taxes and outside opinions. Human resources number 1012005 in the amount of $29,970. Accumulated leave due for 2 retirements. I so move.
Second. Thank you. Okay, do you have any discussion? Voter registration? Legal services, human resources? You're a director? Manager of voter registration. Do you have any questions for me?
What are we discussing now? The
The voter registration.
I have no, that was the Democrat primary for the town
The
council.
Yes. The
Town.
city. Not
No.
for the town?
For the town.
The city was different. Oh, that's right.
Okay, so that was it. Democrat primary for the town council.
Can I make a motion?
We're
Motion
just
out.
doing this one item right now.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. No opposed, no abstention. Legal services. Director Burt here, Manager Burt.
Usually we just.
I am.
On legal services, delinquent taxes and outside opinions, that's what we're spending this on?
Yeah, it's mostly involved with tax collection issues. We're up about 50,000 from last year on those,
That's good. It's needed, right?
which means we'll get more money back too. So
Right. It's a no-brainer, but we needed to ask.
Question?
Mhm.
John?
Mhm.
What is the breakdown between delinquent tax cases and the outside opinions? And what were those outside opinions for?
there's probably dozens of them. I mean, we often get outside opinions if for different reasons. For one thing, we had an issue where there was a conflict of interest between parties, so we had to get it out. I mean, We do it quite often.
Okay, do you have the breakdown between the delinquent tax
I don't.
cases and the
I
outside?
don't, but it wouldn't be, you're probably, it's not a lot of them. I don't have it with me though. No,
Okay, you don't have the monetary numbers between those two?
no.
Okay,
Like I said, the overage is, the only thing we're really over is on the tax issues.
John, did they send us a bill, the legal departments quarterly, monthly? How does that bill come through?
We get a monthly.
And by
Thank you.
delinquent taxes, do you mean to try to collect them?
Yep.
Just different collect, it can be any kind of tax issue, not just delinquent. There's just different tax issues. We always have, we spend quite a bit every year in tax issues, a good chunk of, we actually spend more on tax issues per year than we do on regular legal opinions.
So that's like when they appeal their tax assessment and all that stuff, correct?
Right, or it could be a collection issue. There's some different things it could be.
Need one line. All the assessment. You know the process, Al, better than any of us, so
But didn't it close the deadline?
it doesn't matter.
That's this year's budget. I don't think we're. It's not about assessments. No, right. And that stuff I think.
Gotta have an attorney. I go to court with her. Okay, do we have any more questions?
Yeah, are the tax issues commercial or residential in nature? This is a general generality.
Right, it could be anything. It could, whatever comes up. Generally, you can have a lot more residential than you are commercial though.
You do get a lot more use residentially than commercial.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is this information available for the full RTM? So like whatever the council got with the tax issues and the other expenditure within this account? Because they're
You
gonna
have
want
the,
to be kicked off if we don't have it.
well, did you pull up the agenda items from the actual cover sheet?
No, I made my own.
I mean, we have thousands of things that get billed through there, so it's not like I can do a breakdown of that. But let me see what they actually got at the council. Hold on a sec.
Oh, yeah, because usually you get a delinquent list. The council gets a delinquent list that you have to, that's a different thing.
Yeah,
That's a different thing. Yeah.
That's a suspense. But,
And again, this is just, no particular items on this. It's just total for the year, everything went over, so it's not like, and it's not uncommon to do that. We never know from year to year how many legal issues we'll have.
Did we
That's why I
put, what did we put in that fund last year? 350, 350,000,
297.5.
297.
Yeah, we keep it about the same every year. Some years it's under, and some years it's over.
Thank you. Any other questions?
One quick one. Was this just out of curiosity, delinquent list, did it go up substantially during the COVID thing?
No, it actually didn't. Not at all. We had
Great.
great collection during it. Probably because of all the federal aid.
Everybody got paychecks.
Okay,
The
yeah.
stimulus payments.
It's really good news too, because with the way mortgage was, you could put yourself in a position where you had to come current with mortgage,
Mhm.
you had mortgage forgiveness, taxes don't get paid. So, I mean, with that being said, we're very fortunate in our town that people were able to pay their money.
Absolutely.
Because it would have been a lot more money, would have been a lot more legal battles.
We did see a lot of the stimulus checks that came out. A lot of people came in and paid their taxes or brought their taxes current.
That's great. Good news for us. Thank you, John. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'd make a motion for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unopposed, abstained. Okay, human resources, accumulated leave due for 2 retirements. Is there anybody here to talk to?
I have a question. Accumulated leave, is that like PTO time, sick time, whatever?
Yes,
Vacation time,
yes.
whatever you guys.
Right.
Yeah.
At retirement. Right.
Is it a day for a day, Cindy? Like
Yeah.
for every sick day?
I
Is
didn't
it
bring-
3 to 1? What is?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it is 3 to 1. I didn't bring the detail for me, but for
That's
the
all
sick time, but the vacation, there's a max. There's a
200.
cap.
100 and some odd days.
Right. You have to have a
200
minimum.
days?
So they get the whole thing?
For
Well,
like
you
life
you accrue
of
that,
their career.
Right,
Like,
so
what is-
until you're,
That's a lot of days.
Not when
There's
you
a
work
minimum.
on that.
You know, a maximum, a minimum. that you have to
right, if you've worked for 30 years,
Yeah, but
that's-
it's 200 hours, you said 200 hours and 200 days.
I don't know, what did you say? Days or hours?
Didn't say.
days.
I didn't
It's
say. Somebody
days?
said days,
Yeah, I can.
but I know
Sure.
where I work, it's hours.
Well,
When you have like 250
Everybody's
hours.
contract's different. That's, I'm gonna leave
That's
it.
Depends on how it's
that's a
written.
problem.
I mean, we pay by the hour, so.
But you,
how do you
but you get you get vacation based on how long you've worked.
Years of
in
service.
town.
Correct.
Okay, so it starts out a certain amount of days a year, and you can carry over a certain amount every year.
And
But
you can
only a certain
accu-
amount.
You can accumulate those.
Correct.
Year after year. So if you
Correct.
carry 2 or
Well-
3 days. or-
Well, it gets a little dicey though, because if you get up to your limit, you can't
Accrue anymore.
accrue any.
So there is a limit.
Oh, yeah,
And what is the limit?
it's by contract for unions, and then non-unions. I think it's very similar.
It is, I didn't bring the detail.
I
Normally
just
what
see
they
this
do with-
two hundred
When you have a
sixty
union
number in my
contract,
head.
and non-union employees in that contract, they normally give the same as the bargaining unit
I
gets.
understand.
Very similar usually. Yeah.
Or similar, yeah. It just seems like a lot. I mean,
Well,
that's like, if you split that, it's like 15 grand each.
if they did 30 years, why not?
I'll do 30 years. I'm not walking away with that.
I don't think there's a problem with that, if that's part of the contract.
That's
just
why
my
most
opinion.
employers don't like you to keep accruing.
Correct. The
Because
hospital only
because
lets
of
you
this
keep so much
reason,
time.
it's a liability.
You know, there's people that work 30, 40 years for a company, here it's a good day off. Why shouldn't we think?
Yeah,
You know, when you got corporate people that sit at the top of the ladder, they get buyouts, they're ridiculous.
that, but.
That has nothing to
That's-
It's the
you're-
same
you're-
principle.
Between the private sector
Talk right here.
and the public sector. Public sector they walk away with a lot more than the private.
Oh, no, I see that point. Public and the private jet. I worked for the state, I was a public servant for the state of Connecticut. That's what. That people. We had a retirement, we had benefits. Had a union represented you, that's what. Wasn't the pay.
John, can you provide the full RTM with kind of a general on how much can be rolled over every year for non-union and an average for union, and then how many hours you can accumulate in total
Mhm.
of sick, vacation, things like that, personal
Yes.
day?
Yeah, Cindy's got some of that. We work with Arnisha on that, Cindy.
Yes. Are you asking for at retirement or resignation or just what's in the contract?
I
For
would say
the-
what's in the
The
contract,
active
so
employees?
for active, yes. And that way we have an idea of what to expect in the future.
Who negotiates these contracts?
No,
Human resources?
Who, is there a particular person that
The director.
negotiates?
The director.
Yeah.
of human resources.
I think Eileen also.
Yes, Eileen
Yes.
Duggan is very involved in the negotiation. for the contract.
We need taxpayers on those negotiating committees.
Think so?
You have
I don't know if you
town
legally
I
can
hope
do
you got a
that.
lot of time on your hands, that you got nothing else to do.
I just don't know if it,
I don't
if
think
there's
you can.
statutory, if that's, I don't know.
The town council has to approve them though. So they have to go through John
Yeah,
and then they have to
They're
go.
not involved in the negotiation.
I think they
Right,
don't
the
are.
think
negotiations
a
are normally
union would
between the
allow
town
that.
employees and the
I
negotiating
know,
party.
I know what the protocol is. I'm just saying they need.
We can't have a commission for everything. Come on, that's crazy.
Not only that, but I don't think your unions are gonna agree to that.
I was a union guy for many years, so. But, I see the other side of it.
All right, so 29,970.
Yeah, should we go back to the number?
Yeah, 29,970.
Okay, make a motion, is there any discussion? Okay, make a motion for that, all those in favor? Aye, yes, no,
No.
okay,
Opposed.
opposed? Abstention. 410,
Yeah,
that
there's
passes.
no way, yeah, really, I mean, I know this has been tossed around and tossed around, like, how do you predict who's going to retire? And it's just numbing, it used to,
Well, that's the magic actuary.
I would say that typically when we pass this, we pass it as just one resolution, they're not voted on individually, so I don't know how you want to handle that in the fall. Because you couldn't,
I know, we couldn't
typically we
split it,
don't, it's, the
Fine.
motion is,
but I think everybody wanted to have discussion in the room.
Yeah,
about the
that's fine.
numbers. And that's the only reason why I did it. that way, so.
yeah, that's fine. I
And we
just
passed the
don't know if
number.
you do them individually and one of them got voted down, I don't even know how we would handle that.
Present it as a one number. Oh,
Typically, it's
So
just a
these-
resolution that's read and that's what's
Right,
voted
like
on.
the way I read it, then
Yeah.
everybody votes on the entire resolution.
So
Right.
these, let me just clarify, these three items here would be voted on as
Just
one
one
item.
number.
It's
Yeah.
one resolution.
Yes.
The 104,000.
I did it because I
I
thought
think
we would
that's
all agree.
exactly right, because you
And I
could have an
wanted us to
item
have
that's
open discussion.
under $10,000. Within
Yes,
that
because
group.
there, right, there are,
Mhm.
yes, if it's under $10,000, it's part of.
Right, but if it's in that resolution,
So
it's
this will
gonna be
go,
voted on.
this one resolution here will go to body the next meeting.
Yes.
Is, is, if I understand it correctly, what you're saying is the contracts currently allow not use vacation. or accumulate over multiple-
They can accumulate up to a maximum in most of the union contracts.
And
They're
it's
not
use it or
allowed to
lose it.
carry over.
Right.
There's a certain amount they're allowed to carry over or ask for an extension, which is rare. But it is broken out usually.
But that would be maximum per year, or maximum
Right.
over
Every,
the life of.
every year there's a maximum.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
maximum.
And
and-
So let's say it's 5 days, right? So
Right.
then- Okay,
Right, and it's either that or they lose it.
And typically
anything
six-
over that max, they would lose. They didn't do it.
Typically,
And what is
sick
that
time you can
max?
accumulate
It's
up to a
different
maximum
contracts.
number. Because if you had surgery or something and you suddenly lost all of those, you might.
Right, right.
So I know in the city, it was like you can keep counting up as far as you want it, and I know this isn't the city, but this is just, reference point. You could go all the way up. But you didn't get to take your sick days. Do you remember this? You don't get to take your sick days until you're at like the numbers between 200 and 400 you can take. Those are the only ones that you couldn't cash out at.
Okay.
Like you have to have over 400
Right.
to
That's what we
cash
have
out
to. You
between
have to have
200.
yeah, minimum of
Okay.
200 and anything between 200 and 400, you're eligible for payout. Right, I understand that.
That's
So
the
there's
sick
no
time.
incentive to get below 200 then? Is that what that means?
Well,
Most
the first
employees take their,
200 is-
most
yeah.
employees take their time.
There's-
It's usually, like directors.
For the first 200, you are.
yeah, there's a similar thing with the state. You can only get so much yearly and you can only cash out so much at the
Right,
end.
it's a ratio,
Never get
right?
retired.
It's not.
That's
Yes.
fine.
That doesn't apply to the.
Well, vacation also has cap. It does have cap. And some of the
And sick time,
contracts.
you don't get, that's completely different.
Yeah.
Use it or lose it.
Depends.
Right, yeah.
Casuals, use it or lose it.
Okay, so
I get 2
I
days.
think we're gonna go on to the new business, and we'll take the ordinance changing the redefining and voting districts.
Can I just ask for one thing though?
What's
Do you, since this is gonna go to the full RTM as one number, do you think that you should vote on it?
Yeah,
as the
let's
one
vote on
full-
it as one number.
As one number?
How's that?
Do I need to say? it?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think
the
you just
motion on
need
the
to-
floor.
All right, so we'll just motion the 104.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to transfer a total of $104,548
From contingency.
from contingency to the general fund functions.
Second.
It's quite the articulate motion.
Well, she has to have that in writing.
Just gotta make sure it goes.
Yeah.
And you got it, Nathan?
Well,
I
Second,
seconded.
I got-
Yeah.
Yep.
So all those in favor, say
Aye.
aye.
Post.
Both sides.
Just, can I say one thing?
Yeah.
I just looked through our attorney bills. It's about half and half between the two categories. Though that's assuming everything else stays the same, you know, we could end up coming less and something more and others, because we're not done yet. We're a couple months behind on billing. And almost all of our outside billing this year for outside attorneys was to do with the Police Accountability Act. As the RTM was doing that, we had outside opinions because not everyone trusted the original opinions, and they did end up being the same opinions. So it was sort of a waste, but I was asked to do it. So.
Okay, thank you, John. Appreciate it. Okay, we're on to the next.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, John. Appreciate your
I'm still
time.
here.
Oh,
I
you're
don't get to
staying
leave
for the
yet.
ordinance? Oh, we'll let you go.
You home.
Good. So,
That's activated and then,
Yeah.
go to this.
we have to read every bit of this.
But you know what it says, right? You know what the changes are?
I did. I see the changes. We're gonna have a map and a little presentation about the change.
Because that's the most important thing, you know what.
Bounds are fun to read, but only if you're
It's
about
fun
to.
to read.
Only, I mean, only if you're about to.
We don't, do we have to read this all into?
No, that's what I
RTM
just,
meeting?
yeah.
No.
Randy?
No. Have to be enacted by the town council. And then the resolve is the resolve.
Enacted by the town council of Pittsburgh, Groton. First piece, and then isn't it the last page?
The resolve. at the end.
There's some.
That's further.
So do we read
Well, yeah, okay.
one in there and just the following areas shall be?
Yep.
So we read
1 and 2.
the first two paragraphs and then the last.
And then the
paragraph,
resolve. We actually could read the first,
the paragraph,
yep, and then
the last.
2, 3, 4, and 5. And the resolve, because that's.
Reading all 3, 4, and 5 as well.
You know, these little sentences on the back.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah, those are the actual changes.
This one is with the details of where it goes. Like,
Gotcha.
yeah, that you're following that one, okay, we're gonna go, and then we go left, and then we go right, and then that's that, so that's why that's so long. But it just summarizes the changes in the changes.
This can be 45.
And at the end.
Not the districts, that's all part of one.
This is all posted already, right?
Oh, God.
Somebody's gonna come and
So we-
say that it's not posted.
Right, but
that
an
it's
ordinance
not
has a
really-
whole list of things that have to be done, including the public hearings. You don't have to have postings in the newspaper when those hearings are going to be. You all, RTM gets that notice also before it even gets in the newspaper. You know, Yeah. Yes, you do. But there's ordinances, there's a lot of notices. Yep, and then you get another one when it's all done. But if
Someone
it's vetoed, then it's.
have a motion here to read this into the ordinance? Anyone?
It's always between Annie and I, so.
I make a motion to be enacted by the town council of the town of Groton, section 6-1 of the code of ordinance, voting districts consisting of ordinance number 105, 212, 217, 254, 278, adopted by the town council on October 2nd, 1972, February 18th, 1992, March 2nd, 1993, July 2nd, April 10th, 2013, effectively is hereby replaced and the following ordinance. Repealed. And the following ordinance is hereby enacted in lieu thereof. 1, the following areas shall hereafter constitute the voting district in the town of Groton and are hereby adopted to conform to the 2021 plan of congressional districting approved by the state of Connecticut Supreme Court on February 10th, 2022, and published by the state of Connecticut Secretary of State on February 10th, 2022. And to enact other changes to be made hereby by the Groton Town Council pursuant to Town of Groton Charter 3.7. All right, changes to District 1, 2, 3, and 4 have been made as required by the 2021 redistricting plan enacted by the state of Connecticut. 3, by vote of the Groton Town Council, portions of District 3 have moved to District 2. 4, by the vote of Groton Town Council, portions of District 1 have moved to District 4. 5, District 5, 6, and 7 have not had any changes to their boundaries. Be resolved that the town council furthermore authorizes the use of description of the ordinance changing and redefining the voting district in lieu of the complete test and the notice of. Yes, that's the notice of adoption of the ordinance. I so move.
Thank you. We'll have some discussion. Any questions? Other than that?
So the colors are what it's going to, so that would be the current should this get approved. The red dotted line shows where it was before. So there's some purple down the side of the yellowy orange. I dropped that, sorry.
It's okay.
That, you know, just those few streets have moved into the purple district. But instead of putting them in District 1, we're putting them in District 2 because they are city streets. And then the ones in the top, they are yellow now, and the red line shows where they were purple before. Those are the ones that moved from District 4 to District 1. This is, the state does this every 10 years. They call it redistricting, and the state Congress sets this up and gets it done and approves it, goes through a whole rigmarole, whatever, and then they issue it down to the towns to be approved by our towns.
Does anybody do an analysis of what are affected by this?
I don't know the exact numbers, but I have the numbers in each district. Because I know that District 4 is a very large district, and it went, all of our districts were approximately 3,000, a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, but averaged right at 3,000. But now District 4 is at 5,000. So we were talking with the town council that there may be a need to, in the future, not here, not now, either move that into 2 districts or move some of those people into another district. The problem that we have is that if too many people come into one district, then they're waiting too long, and then we can get kind of in trouble, I guess, with the state for making people wait.
Can I ask a question on this?
Yeah.
So I know like Blueberry Hill is now in District
2. 2 is not on that page. 2 is below, where the purple is below the yellow.
Where,
That is District 1. The
This
rest
is-
of that
okay.
purple is District 1.
and this is District 4 here?
Yes.
Okay. I
Yep,
was
and 5,
just
6, and
very
7 are
confused.
on the other
Perfect.
side.
Okay, thank you.
It's hard when you first look at it.
Oh, it is.
That I saw.
It is. I mean, I did it wrong the first time because I thought that the dotted line was the new and the coloring was the old. So I put it in backwards. And then I went back and changed it once I
So
realized.
just because when you started talking about the dotted line, I hadn't gone over there yet. So this all used to be purple?
Yes,
Okay.
so that's
And
where,
this used to be yellow.
correct.
Okay.
And that's just 40th versus the 41st. The state doesn't have any say in our individual districts. That's why we could move District 4 and make it 2 districts or whatever, because as long as they're all in the 40th district, they don't care. But it was a little difficult because those were city streets and it looked like they were supposed to be moved into District 1. And after meeting with the state and talking to some of the counselors, we really wanted to move it into 2, but it just makes a little.
On contrary to what you might have heard at town council, maybe, and even in another meeting, hearing, the publication that was sent to Portia Board Law was not, it was generated by the DMV. When you make a change to your voter registration at DMV, any little thing like take your middle name out, anything, it generates a letter, and you don't have any control over that.
It comes to us and we're required to send the
But you
letter.
don't have any control over that,
We don't. No, it comes into the computer and it just gets processed.
right? Nothing. So,
And you
But
don't, you
but
don't
it is-
question it because it's there, right? I mean, when you get when it comes into your computer, you can't question it. You just do what you're supposed to do, right? Like if someone came, if you got something.
she knew somebody passed away, she would, you know.
Right.
No, but I'm saying if you knew somebody didn't move, say, but you got a thing that said generate a letter, you
I
wouldn't
still
question
have
it, you
to
just send it.
send the letter.
Yeah.
If the letter comes back undeliverable, then I
That's
am
different.
allowed to question.
So if you're missing a middle initial on. On vehicle,
Well, I'm just saying that that it has nothing to do
you
with your
would
name
take a
there.
letter out.
No, you can register your name, voter registration, any way you want. My name is Elizabeth on my driver's license, but my voter registration is Betsy. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
But I have to have Elizabeth on my driver's.
Illegal.
We do now.
We do now, yeah.
Start calling you Liz.
Lizzie.
So-
Lizzie.
No, just kidding.
There's no instance where somebody.
Guys,
would, have right. Oh,
No, but it does, like somebody went to the DMV and they registered a vehicle in Waterford that they were giving to their mother, but it was still remaining in their name. The DMV says, oh, we got to change of address. So we moved the person to off. We sent them a letter saying, you are now listed as off. The DMV told us you moved to Waterford. And
They
they
had to
came back and
respond.
said, no, I didn't move. And then I said, well, did you go to the DMV? That's a new question that we first asked. And he said, oh, yes, I registered a vehicle for my mom in Waterford at her house, but it's in my name. And I said, that's why. So then we can correct that. If somebody were to come in on election day and they moved out of town and they come to us and they say, we didn't, and we look in the system and it says it's a DMV change, and they tell us they did not make a change, we just have them fill out a card and we put them in the system the way that they say they're supposed to be, and we would let them vote. So they wouldn't lose their right to vote if the DMV made a mistake.
I'll ask one question as well. Whose direction did you, or were you getting the information? Because the state couldn't guide you specifically, correct? For moving around the district.
The state sent us all kinds of information and they had all kinds of trainings, but it never said, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to look at it. This is what you need to do, because they tell us just the 40th and the 41st. And so we go through and we look at it and say, okay, so like, this is a really small black and white, but the 41st is down here and the 40th is up here. And this is the new one, but you can't see that right over here is where those changes were. So when you look at that, it looks like those people that were now in District 2 are going to be in District 2. It looked like they were supposed to go to District 1. We didn't know what the representatives meant when they pulled that out. Did they mean for it to go to District 1, or did they what? The only thing I thought of is District 1 because of where it was located. If we do that, that caused a problem because they were city going into a town district. So I was talking with the state on what we should do about that. And they told us that we'd have to make a separate little district just for those few streets in District 1 so that they would be voting in District 1, but that they would still get a city ballot on city elections, which would be extremely complicated because we're no longer going to have May elections. The state has changed the laws, so every election is in November. So when we have the city and the town, they'll be at the same day at the same time. So it's just,
We talk about confusion. Wow.
so it was horrible. So after I was talking to the state and I said, this is what we've got here. And they're like, well, you have to make a separate district. And I'm like, well, could we put it down here? And they're like, well, you can do whatever you want with the districts. And I'm like, tell me that 2 weeks ago. So that's how I found out that we can do whatever we want with the district. They have no say in that. They only care that they vote in the 40th or the 41st where they're supposed to be. Yeah.
Well, that
Thank God.
Well, it's only a state change that they did. That's why it only affects the state senate.
Thank you.
A lot more complicated. not easy.
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah, it is. A lot of groundwork. Not everybody talks the same way, right?
Yeah, it's good that we have a registrar that does.
Right. That's even better, right. And we're glad you got a raise.
Get some
Yeah,
money.
okay, $15 an hour, you work every day. Check and get $15 an hour work. Great. Okay, there's any more discussion, any more questions? Okay. Think we can vote on it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No abstentions. 5-0. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you.
We have our big agenda item tonight. And I don't have an opinion on this. And my polling before I came. I'll see it.
Yeah, we do.
It's 295.
Yes, that's right.
An ordinance in regard to 22-351, an ordinance 295, for the tax abatement program for emergency work. That's someone that would like to read. How much of it do we need to read?
Well, I hope everybody has read it because it's,
Yeah.
there's some very important things in this. As far as the RTM, you should read the whole thing, really. And this is,
At the RTM or here? Here? I mean, I don't mind.
it's really, you know,
Let's read it all. Would you mind reading something? Representative,
you can read a few paragraphs.
do we want to all read a few paragraphs? I don't want to read any.
All right, let's do that then.
Fine, that's how.
Tell us when you're done. You're tired.
So. There's like 2.5 pages, so.
Okay, so-
Read a page.
Kathy, read the first page. Al can
And
read
put
the
it in the
second.
form of a motion.
Yes. Make a motion.
I don't make a motion for ordinance number 295 for a tax abatement program for surviving spouse of a police officer, firefighter, or emergency medical.
the only motion you have, it's already enacted, the only motion you have is veto. So,
Oh, so
so
I don't
that's,
say
so
that.
if someone wants to make a motion to veto, this is always the rub
Oh,
on
so-
ordinances,
Mhm.
you know?
So I don't need to say make a motion, I'm just reading it.
So the RTM does not approve ordinances, we veto them. We do nothing or we veto them.
Right.
Even if it can still get to the floor and they can veto it. So correct.
Oh, yeah.
I make a motion to veto it.
Right,
We
and that's
would
the only
need a
way you'd be
second,
able to
and then
discuss
we
it.
would vote.
I also, that motion on the floor, the veto is the only way you can discuss an ordinance.
But we don't do that here.
Yes, we do.
We're making a motion. So if we want to make a motion to veto it, I would say make a motion to veto ordinance number 295. Keep reading.
Now, I'm gonna go back on my notes. You know, I don't know why I didn't think about this. I think
It's
it's
a busy
important to
day,
read, I
Betsy,
think it's
you know
important to
that.
read it into the record. Because it should be read into the record, you know? Just because it's been posted everywhere, doesn't mean anybody looked at it.
Okay, so let's read it.
All right, I make a motion to veto ordinance number 295 for a tax abatement program for surviving spouse of a police officer, firefighter, or emergency medical technician. Abatement of property taxes for spouses of firefighters, emergency medical technicians, town of Groton police officers, Groton Long Point police officers, and city of Groton police officers are a civilian police officer or firefighter employed by the Naval Submarine Base New London who die on duty while in performance of their duties. A, definitions. The following words, terms, and phrases, when used in this section, shall have the meanings ascribed to them in this section, except where the context clearly indicates a different meaning. Emergency medical technician, EMT, means any person who is certified as an emergency medical technician by the state of Connecticut Office of Emergency Medical Services performing EMT duties full-time or part-time for any valid ambulance service provider located within the geographical boundaries of the town of Groton. EMT duties means duties performed while traveling to, at, or returning directly from calls routed through an emergency dispatch center or tests or trials of any apparatus or equipment normally used by the employer ambulance service provider while instructing or being instructed in EMT duties or while engaging in any other duty ordered to be performed by a superior or commanding officer in the ambulance service provider. Fire duties means duties performed while at fires, while answering alarms of fires, while answering calls for mutual aid assistance, while returning from calls for mutual aid assistance, while directly returning from fires, while at tests or trials of any apparatus or equipment normally used by the fire department, while going to or returning directly from such tests or trials, while instructing or being instructed in fire duties, and any other duty ordered to be performed by a superior or commanding officer in the fire department. Firefighter means any person who is a duly employed member of a state or municipal fire department or are a civilian firefighter employed by the Naval Submarine Base, New London, and paid for the purpose of performing fire duties, full-time or part-time, for any valid fire department located within the geographical boundaries of the town of Groton.
Okay, great, okay. Death while in the performance of duty means the death occurs while a firefighter, emergency technician, or police officer is performing an action solely related to the performance of the regular work or as part of it. Death while in the performance of duty does not include deaths that just have likely occurred while not on duty, or deaths that resulted from illness or disease, whether or not solely related to the performance of your regular work or as part of it. Time to and from the place of business is not considered performance of duty. Police officer means a duly sworn member of a state municipal police department or a civilian police officer employed by the Naval Submarine Base in New London, serving in an official capacity, full-time or part-time, with compensation, or a duly sworn member of the town police department, serving the town in an official capacity, full-time or part-time, for any valid police department located within the geographical boundaries of the town of Groton. Police duties mean any action which an officer is obligated or authorized by law, rule, regulation, or written condition of employment of service to perform during regularly scheduled hours, or other hours that qualify for compensation from the state or local police department, or as a civilian employee by the Naval Submarine Base in New London. Surviving spouse means the person who is a resident of the town and married to the police officer or firefighter at the time of the police officer or firefighter's death. Valid ambulance services provider means any business, nonprofit engaged in the business of transporting sick, disabled, or injured individuals by ambulance to or from facilities or institutes providing health services. B, in accordance with state statute 12-81X, there is hereby established, effective for the grand list of October 1, 2022, an abatement of 100% of municipal real estate, municipal residential property taxes with respect to real property owned by the surviving spouse of a police officer who has died as a result of the performance of police, or a firefighter who has died as a result of the performance of fire duty. The abatement only applies to town tax due to the town of Groton and does not apply to any district or other political taxes that may be due. The tax abatement will remain in effect so long as the surviving spouse owns the property as of October 1st grand list and occupies the residence as their primary residence, or until the spouse conveys their fee interest in the subject residence. If the spouse subsequently purchases another residence in the town and all qualifying criteria remain, then the tax abatement shall apply to the new residence. For any property that is in trust, a copy of the trust agreement must be provided to the assessor. The terms of the trust agreement are that the claimant must be considered to be the primary beneficiary of the trust. Upon the death of any person entitled to tax relief pursuant to this section, the tax relief hereunder shall end the following June 30th. If any person who is entitled to a tax abatement hereunder conveys their fee title in the property with respect to which the tax abatement hereunder has been granted, the tax relief shall be suspended as of the date of abeyance, and the non-qualifying grantee of such property shall pay the town a prorated share of taxes thereby due and owing. The assessor is to be notified by the applicant to transfer within 10 days of the property transfer date. F, the property tax relief provided for this section shall, in any case, where title to real property is recorded in the name of the qualifying surviving spouse and any other person or person, be prorated to reflect the fractional portions of qualifying spouse. Or if such property is a multiple family or multiple use dwelling, such relief be prorated to reflect the fractional portion of such property.
All right, occupied by the qualifying spouse. A spouse desires such abatement shall submit an application to the assessor requesting a determination as to whether such abatement is permitted. G, if such surviving spouse were remarried, the abatement shall cease, commencing with taxes on the October 1st grand list next following the date of such marriage. In the event that such remarriage shall terminate, such surviving spouses may apply for the abatement commencing with tax due on the October 1st grand list next following the date of such terminate. H, the surviving spouse's annual income may not be more than 400% of the federal poverty level. A single person, family / household published annually in January. Federal Register, Department of Health and Human Services, rate continuous state tax collector and assessor shall prescribe with regard to their respective duties under this section, such forms and procedures as may be in this section. Assessor, in addition, shall take such steps necessary to establish facts as to the qualifying surviving spouse's interest in property, requesting such documents as the assessor deems necessary. Such documentation will be required yearly to continue the tax abatement. Eligibility shall be determined by assessor and or in their designee. Such determination shall be final. J, no later than November 1st of each year, the surviving spouse shall complete and file with the assessor an application for the 100% abatement and attest annually that 1, they have not remarried since the death of their police officer or firefighting spouse, and 2, adjusted gross income as reported to the IRS for the prior calendar year did not exceed 100% of the federal poverty limit. Providing a copy of their completed Form 1040. Okay, this ordinance shall become effective on the 45th day after publication notice of passage of the ordinance and shall be applicable to the assessment year commencing on or after October 1st, 2022.
So well said.
I missed that. Could you reread that?
You guys discuss.
May I ask a question? Surviving spouse, the definition.
Mhm.
Surviving spouse means the person who was a resident of the town and married to the police officer or firefighter at the time of the police officer or firefighter's death. Why are we not including EMTs?
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's some typos in here. They leave out EMT in several places.
Yeah,
There's
they
an-
made sort of a last minute change to include the, excuse me, that. If you flag them for me, since they're meant to be in there, I could just make the change.
So the surviving spouse section is missing that,
Definition or is under.
Missing,
Okay,
yeah,
the
yeah,
definition.
Oh, yeah.
EMT.
got it. Okay, I'll correct that.
See, that's why I thought it should just be emergency workers, you know, you delineate who the emergency workers are. And then thereafter, just call them emergency workers,
Right.
instead of
Right.
keep saying it over and over
But you
again.
start separating them out.
Yes.
Right.
But you can delineate who the emergency workers are, and
there on Palmer emergency work.
There's also an extra word on
Yeah, I saw
the
that.
first page.
Normal
Yeah,
We're at,
1, 2, 3, the fourth paragraph.
for EMT duties.
EMT duties means duties, blah, blah, blah. On the second line, there's that normal, the word normal should be taken out.
Normally.
oh, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I marked that also,
Question,
but it's okay, so.
it says here. What about these, civilian workers at the base?
Mhm.
Are they employees of the town?
No, they would not. Just like the city and GLP ones wouldn't be either.
Yeah, but they're federal employees, correct?
Right. Correct. The council wanted to include them.
I have a real problem
Well,
with
this is what
that.
I wanted to ask, John. Can we make, if we don't veto this year,
I say,
if we don't veto this year, can we make changes or no?
No, you have to veto it. Only, I mean, corrections, but not substantive changes.
Veto it.
And even the council with substantive changes would have to go back to a public hearing and all that.
I have a real problem with, Groton taxpayers, this town, city of Groton taxpayers subsidizing federal employees and their spouses. Really have a problem with that. So I say, because there's no, it's one thing if you're working in the town as a firefighter, EMT, police officer, you die in the line of duty. That's fine. That's an obligation to the town, but for federal employees, why are we doing that? That makes no sense whatsoever.
And the council added it at the very last meeting. They had it in there the whole time until the end.
Well, that's what I was gonna piggyback, from Representative Gardner, is that, what was the background on why they wanted to add that, or was it just a few council? Was there consensus?
Well, they had to vote on it, yes. Somebody brought it up that they wanted it in there and then they voted on it. It was as simple as that.
I think they respond to some of the fires in town, the Sundays fire.
Or something else?
Right.
Sub-base fire department definitely comes.
That's the
as
reason
mutual
it's-
aid.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's only last resort.
If you consider.
No, these are all civilian. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question for John.
I do, yeah. First of all, John, what are other towns doing? I mean, is this something that came down from the state that everybody's been forced into?
Some have it, some don't. The reason this came up particularly is somebody lived in the city that the city has an has an ordinance. It's been in effect since 2001. It only includes firefighters and police officers. It does not include, obviously it would include the base, but it also, there's nothing like EMTs in there. It is 100% abatement. The person living in the city getting that moved into the town, and the town did not have an ordinance, and she requested an ordinance, and it's been going on for a couple of years now. Where it came up 2 years ago, council turned it down. This time it came up and they approved it.
I think I know this case. Because a friend of mine has already brought it up, but that person is collecting the pension of the person.
And what part of what they have to do is show, it's 400% of the poverty level. That's about, for a single person, that's about 51,000 and change.
Right now,
So-
it's 54,360, John.
What's that?
This year, it's
54,360.
54,360.
That's the poverty rate, or that's
The 400% of the poverty. You'll be making 54,360.
So anything over that, they get disqualified.
Well,
Correct.
That is the. line
so
right there.
in this particular case, you're saying that it's less than that level?
Well, until it goes into effect, this isn't just for one person ultimately. So once it goes into effect, you have to provide all the paperwork and show you're eligible.
Yeah.
Every year you have to do that to show you're continuing to be eligible.
Who hasn't spoken? You spoke?
I spoke.
Okay.
I just gave them a number. All right, so I have a few things on this. So on the second page, it says serving in an official full-time or part-time with compensation or duly sworn. What does with compensation mean? Because sometimes
Because
volunteer
No
firefighters.
volunteers would not be eligible.
Would not be.
Can you tell me what that was under, what the heading is?
It's
It's
not a
on
heading.
this- It's,
Under police officers being duly
Um,
sworn. The
Police
second
officers
paragraph.
being duly sworn. I have a different piece of paper.
oh.
Oh,
So, yeah, because sometimes volunteers get compensated
Hmm.
like once a year or something like that. So that sentence is a little wonky for me. And then I absolutely do not agree with 100% of the being reimbursed. Living in the city is a lot, their taxes are a lot less than in the town. And worst case scenario, if we have a police officer whose spouse lives in Groton Long Point and their taxes are $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, the rest of the Groton taxpayers have to pick that up. And let's see. Oh, and the other one is, in the event that such remarriage shall terminate, such surviving spouse may apply for the abatement commencing with. That is not done in any other area of this state. Once you
Well, so-
remarry, you lose all your rights,
If
whatever.
you remarry, but then you get divorced.
No,
So you could.
You cannot.
Right, that's what
No.
Melissa said.
Yeah, they're trying, that's what it's, this ordinance, but that's not the way it works.
what I'm
You can
saying is,
remarry
in real life,
Social Security, you're done.
yes,
Yeah.
if you remarry and if you divorce that second
Yeah.
person, you're done, you don't get it back.
Right.
So is that what it's saying?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
So
so,
if
so.
you get divorced.
if
on the
you're-
second marriage, and then they
Yeah.
can collect, they can start it.
Right.
yes,
They have to apply to restart.
yeah, but
Every year.
that's
And they're
not-
allowing for what they're writing.
I'm guessing the thought behind that, and I'm not agreeing with it, the thought behind that is, I went from having somebody help support the taxes, to now I don't have somebody to help me support the taxes, so now I'm back to not having anything.
We're having our big meeting in the.
Oh, no, okay.
This is our finance. Thank you.
Yeah, so, I don't know, I'm gonna say something that's probably gonna be very unpopular, but I've talked to other people about it and they agree. Is that people choose to go into these professions and you know what the consequences are of them. And you marry someone in that job, and you also agree and understand the consequences of marrying that person. So I'm totally against any of this tax. But I mean, you have to think, the more abatements we give to people, because everybody, you know, has a story, and the more abatements we give, the more the other taxpayers pick up the slack. And if you're making 54,360, and that's only this year in 22, that's probably going to increase. It does increase every year, because I work with that too in my day job. So if you're making 54,360, you have to, you can afford to pay your taxes unless you live in Groton Long Point. If not, then you just like.
The other thing is, why are we giving it to electrical linemen too? Their
Everybody.
job is a lot more dangerous than an EMT.
People
Maybe
live in
not more
Groton.
dangerous than a firefighter or a police officer, but it's certainly more dangerous than an EMT. So I certainly do not want to give federal employees this.
No.
Absolutely
No.
not. So I'm a veto on
I'm
this.
giving.
Can I ask another?
Yes, you can.
We're doing this, yet I don't really see where we are completely educated on what happens to families of a policeman or fireman. But I am certain that they are insured substantially to make sure that the family is continued and
Yeah,
protected.
survivor,
Yeah.
usually there's survivor
Yeah,
benefits.
yeah.
With the
And-
police, I know there is.
With any job, you have a.
Even with our
insurance for your
jobs, in town hall.
yeah,
Okay.
if with the job alone,
Yeah.
like our drivers do have an insurance policy, you know, in case it's not that much, but they're not likely they're
But you can
likely
always
to
buy-
kill
you can
someone,
always
but
buy
not like.
additional life insurance.
But
They're in a dangerous job. That's okay.
exactly, but it would, well, that would be very expensive for them to buy life insurance. So the town's providing really substantial security for people who take the risks.
I have some questions when you're done.
Okay, well, that's one of my questions, okay, then it seems to imply that if a person owns multiple properties, that multiple properties can be
Exactly.
exempt as well, and I don't like
That's
that.
something he can, is that true, John?
John,
So, yeah, based on the word.
Yeah,
I know, in
I believe it
the
has to be your primary resident.
Yeah, it did say
Like,
that.
Yeah.
If you have
Yeah,
a
but they were
duplex-
talking about
But
duplex.
if you bought a second property, it says that can be added to it.
What do you say that?
If you read those words carefully, it
Can you
says.
find that?
Another, okay, it's item C. It says,
second,
yeah, if the spouse subsequently purchases another residence in the town, all qualifying residents, then the tax abatement shall apply to the new residence. Now,
Well, that's a different road. In other words, you start out with one and you sell it, you buy another
Yeah,
house.
that's-
well, it doesn't.
It should be cleared up, though, I agree.
but it
that's
doesn't
not
say
right.
that
He's
you-
he's reading it right.
If the subsequently purchases another, in other words, that's an
Subsequently,
addition,
subsequently,
it is
yeah,
not
yeah.
selling and
Right.
moving,
Exactly, right. You read it exactly the way it's written.
But wait a minute, excuse me. The tax abatement will remain in effect so long as the surviving spouse owns the property as of the October 1st grand list and occupies the residence. Occupies the residence as the primary residence or
Yep.
until the spouse conveys the fee, interest in subject residence. In other words, conveys it.
So it only
So-
applies where they're living and claiming as their primary.
Right. But then if they buy another house, it'll apply to that.
Yeah, once they.
Unless they move to it.
Right,
I don't
right.
see
They have to
where
live
it
there.
precludes them from.
It says it only applies to the primary residence.
If you say residence, that means you're living there.
Primary residence.
Well, that's that sentence,
Yeah.
and that's what that's talking about.
The
It's
way
not
it's
talking
written.
about,
He's reading it the way it's
you
written.
can only, it doesn't say you can only get abatements on one resident.
Well, you have to read it as a whole.
Yeah, you can't just pick it out.
And-
See if it works.
And we took this language out of other ones and the attorneys reviewed it.
Hey,
Okay.
If you-
So,
Yeah.
I'm right, they can't do two houses.
Right.
No, they
And
cannot.
under a trust, they can't do all of the houses that might be owned by a trust. Is
No,
that correct?
For a property that is in the trust.
it has to be a primary residence.
Has to be a primary residence, and then this is, for any property that is in a trust, a copy of the trust must be provided in terms of agreement and that must. Okay, so they get it, but it's in a trust. Still can only do one.
Their
That's,
primary.
that is the
Wherever
way,
they
that's
live.
my question. The only other possibility is, if somebody is working for the police station in Montville and lives in Groton, do we have to honor if he's?
No, it specifies it has to be within the geographic boundary.
That his work has to be within the G.
Yeah.
Not just that he lives here, but. that
Correct.
They should have a thing, so that then my remaining only valid question is, what are other towns doing? Is
You
this,
said the city has something,
yeah, but I want to know
but it's not.
state, I want to know statewide.
It's all over the place. I mean, some have 50%, some have none, some have 50%, some have 100%. The city has 100%, but only for firefighters and police. So it's all over the place. It's really up for grabs for what people want to do.
So if we veto this tonight, John, and
Mm.
it goes back to the town
Well, that's not how it works. You're recommending a veto to the full RTM.
full RTM.
Yeah.
And if they veto it, is it done or does it go back to the Kent Town Council?
Well, it's done for now because it'll go back to them and they'll have to decide if they want to make changes. And otherwise it's done. I mean, they could make changes and resend it back to you.
That's
Well, we
fine,
can discuss it again.
but,
There you go.
and that's fine, but I think changes need to be made on this. It's very generous.
It is.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
generous.
Well, I know that,
Hold on.
We haven't really established, John, what happens to somebody when they do inadvertently end up and dying from some work they were doing in that capacity. We don't know what they already have in terms of insurances, in terms of pension, in terms of other things that will pass down to the wife. And we may just be adding money on top of money. And I would like to know that we're being reasonable. I'm not against saying that if there's a true need, we do something for it as a true need. I just wonder how for so many years we've lived without. We have one case where it was done and people are kind of upset about that, but you know, because they don't get the same thing in their anyway, close.
Looking in the police contract, if you had a death on duty, the family gets 1 year lump sum payment for their salary.
Plus their insurance, right?
No.
Does the
If you have
town
that insurance, right?
for their life insurance?
Right.
Is it
But that's
sufficient
an addition, it's lump sum of the salary, but there's also
life
a life
insurance?
insurance.
What is it sufficient? Because I know that it's not it's not, but
It's not really substantial for the insurance. I forget what it is, but it's not real big for any of the town employees. There's a little bit of insurance.
And I got a few
I didn't
questions
hear,
here
I
I'd
didn't
like to
hear what the
answer.
council,
but
though, I didn't hear the council ask.
in that light though, when you're you know, I wonder sometimes we sit there and have a life insurance policy that's standard. Okay, that's 20 years old and the cost of living is double. So, you know,
That's up to the people to
No,
increase. their
no,
insurance.
no. This is the town's life insurance, where in my case, Seed's life
It's
insurance.
$100,000.
Yeah, it's
See,
not,
it's usually
it changes.
your
over
salary
time, yeah.
plus.
So.
Okay, I just looked up the police insurance if you want to hear it.
Yep.
Here's how it reads. Group life insurance in the principal sum of 50,000 plus an additional 1,000 for each 1,000 in annual base salary over 50,000 to a max of 100,000. So if you made 60,000, you basically get 60,000. Basically, you get your salary up to 100,000 for the life insurance payout. So
Life
you made
insurance.
100,000. So you'd get the 1 year salary through the death on duty if you death on duty, and then generally the life insurance is from 50 up to 100 depending on your salary.
So
Can they
they
buy
died to get
supplemental?
150,000 max and their salary.
Yeah, but can they buy supplemental insurance? Supplemental life
On
insurance,
their own, not through the town. On their own, they can.
not through the town. I
That's
buy it on my own company.
I wouldn't, if that's the case where they, not a retirement aging passing thing, it's an in-life, possibly with children and family and stuff. And the settlements I see when somebody gets hurt are like 6 million, 10 million, 100 million, you know, that's not enough to solve the problem. But so I don't know what to say here, but I would have thought that if you're in a risk job, like a policeman or like a fireman, a high risk job, then I would think the insurance policies would be high, you know, like 7 figures. You know, if they intend to be able to maintain their family the way it was, you know, work. I'm not saying that that's maybe that's really expensive, but I don't know. I just, so in that case, I would say, okay, you know, if all they got is $50,000 life insurance for a year, then I could say we could a tax statement, but if you were to ask me how to do that, I would say a 10-year max on something like that.
I just have a few questions,
Go
John.
ahead.
They're pretty simple. With the town in the situation that we're in right now, is this a wise move? As far as, with inflation and everything else? Is this something that the town could absorb? If we had a natural disaster, we had a mass shooting and, 10 officers.
At this time, there's one person that's affected by it. Looking back at all the agencies, there's only one. I think there was years ago, one firefighter that died on duty. It's been pretty negligible. I will say though that there's also a similar thing out there for Gold Star families. If your child or spouse die in duty, there's a similar tax benefit ordinance you can do. Well, we had someone reach out this week asking about that. So, so these things kind of lead to other things.
Right, it's Pandora's box.
Right.
The thing I really don't like
Now
about
I'm
it-
in a hard position because, the council voted for this, so,
Yeah, no, I understand, and I'm
yeah.
just asking flat out questions because I think they're important. What I don't like about it and why I believe that the language needs to be changed before I would ever recommend this to be moved forward. I don't like categorization of people. I mean, we're talking about first responders. Well, what is a first responder? And I don't like the state's definition of that at all. I think Representative Gardner makes a great point as to the guys that are out on the lines working in the middle of the winter with all kinds of weather. The public works guy that gets out of the truck that turns around and he's got to undo the spreader because it's not spreading salt, he gets run over. We have all kinds of liability insurances. Is that correct in town for accident insurance? Is that part of our?
Yeah.
Right. And we have, the endless amounts of lawsuits that go on when people have these kind of problems. And I mean, death is final. But to take and to say to someone here, I like some of the language in here, but I'm not a fan of anybody having this the way it is. Because I just think it's not, if you're gonna exclude so many people and you're gonna include a very small number of people, and I don't believe that's right for anybody. I also believe that it's a problem when we go to negotiate contracts. I really see that as a problem.
Pandora's box.
Correct. We're opening up more liabilities. If I get this, I want that. Unions are notorious for doing it. Okay, and I think that that's a problem. But, all in all, I respect the police, the firemen and the EMTs. I think everybody in this room
Yes.
does. And I don't think it's about them. I think it's about the language of it and what happens to their family. It's like anybody. Kathy was right. My wife works in the medical professional, spent 35 years into this. Every day she goes to work, I wouldn't expect the town to pay for me, especially if she's working in Groton, okay? And somebody walks in and shoots her. I mean, I just think there's too many liabilities here. Granted, she doesn't work for the town, I understand that, but it's the same kind of principle, okay? What about the guy who's driving down the street, that's doing planning and zoning and he gets killed, getting out of his car? What makes him any different than the police, the EMT? And granted, it's a first responder. I understand the difference. What I'm saying is, why are we treating our employees differently? That's my point. And
Well, the first responder,
I'm not
Should
asking
be.
for your opinion.
I didn't.
I want his opinion. Thank you. I would like your opinion, John.
Well, the council had this discussion and they thought it was worthwhile.
I got it.
Well, again,
I want your.
Again, I would like,
It's not my opinion.
I
I'm
want-
asking you a question.
Yeah.
We have first responders that maybe even in this room, I don't know, but we have tons of them, including your wife. Now, there was a person who was treated for COVID days and died. And she was what, 30 years old?
Correct.
30 years old. And, what does she have to protect herself in that case? And she's exposing herself to much more difficult things. And this is true in the AIDS epidemic as well. So there are high risk first responders that do die. And maybe, only because it's unexpected. They're not, that they die.
Right, it's like, yes.
Since we're talking, it's currently one person, how much money are we saying this would abate? You haven't.
Hold on a sec. Give me a sec. Cindy said that to me earlier. For this current year, It's 85.39 and 38 cents. And if you assumed, at their new assessment, if you assumed the 21.16, if that held true for the mill rate, it'd be $10,230.65 for the upcoming year.
That's ahead. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna ask some follow-up questions that are completely irrelevant to that. So if a firefighter dies, or if a town employee dies in the line of duty, and they are eligible for their pension, I'm assuming that pension would go to their family.
So
Correct.
whoever they put as their beneficiary.
Correct. The beneficiary. They would also get Social Security, correct? There's a point to this question. They would also get Social Security, correct? A police officer.
I believe so.
Okay, so firefighters do not pay into Social Security, correct?
I don't have firefighters. The police don't. You know what? The police don't pay into Social Security.
Police don't pay.
Police don't pay into Social Security.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I don't have firefighters, so I can't say.
That's my only concern, is that they don't get to pay into Social Security, so if they haven't been there long enough, then suddenly they don't get the same benefits that some of the rest of us would get if our spouse. I want that out there as information.
We were having a
making a
discussion.
judgment. So that's something that I don't think everybody knows, and I want to make sure people are aware of that.
So maybe we
Firefighters
get
and
some
police
facts when we
officers
bring
do
it.
not pay the Social Security and therefore don't get Social Security.
But they have pension. And if I understand this one case we have, that it is a case where I don't know what age she was, or she was when she did, but she got his pension. That's, if I'm not mistaken.
He
Now,
wasn't
is that
vested
true?
in- he
Now,
wasn't
is she,
vested-
even though she wasn't retired herself or young, she's still young or something?
I don't remember if he was vested or not in the city. He would have had to have been there for a certain number of years to be vested.
My understanding.
Correct.
Police officer for a long.
Okay, then yes.
Yeah.
I'm understanding that this town or the city is paying pension, and I don't know if it's as of the day she died, or whether it was when she achieved the age. So again, there's a question of is that information available as to whether she got the pension immediately because he died, or
Well, in terms of the ordinance, it should really be about the broader ordinance. And until the ordinance is in place and apply, we wouldn't have any financials.
yeah.
Then they have to give their tax records and everything else.
So my thought is, God forbid something happened here like it did in Texas and wherever else it's happening, because it's ridiculousness now. But if we had 2 or 3 or 4 of those first responders, I mean, I don't know, I just look at it this way, we can't be everybody's everything, and you have to plan for your own life. You have to think of ahead and think of if this happens, how am I gonna handle it and plan for it. So, and like I said, and it was the one person's choice to move from the city to Mystic, so with that being said. And our taxes are going up, and the people who are gonna have to pay these abated taxes to cover people, it's just gonna be another burden on the taxpayers of Groton.
I guess I'll just have one question and one comment. How fast was this push, John, through the council?
It's taken a while. Like I said, it first came up 2 years ago. The council went through it and they didn't take any action on it. So it sat, the new council came in. So that was probably, the first time was probably the beginning of 21-ish, right around there. So it went, they discussed it for a couple months, it went away. So then it was brought back up when the new council came in, and they spent several meetings discussing it. They had a public hearing to get public comment on it.
That's what I was thinking, 'cause I saw it in like my perspective, 3 or 4 months, it was pushed out. And,
Yeah, a few months, I'd say.
and I'm right now conflicted, I think, I think we all respect, like we said, our emergency medical technicians, our officers, the firefighters, everything. I did some quick research and that there were, there's only been, I think, about 20 line of duty deaths in the state of Connecticut, for Schneider being one of them, or Groton. And this ordinance only applies to officers who, specifically work and live here, so that was something, and I get Kathy's point. It's more, for our taxpayers. But I think it'd also be somewhat sort of an incentive here for our officers, because I know we're lacking, but I can't with the language now that the discussion here, it's almost like I'm conflicted on what I'm gonna even vote right now, so. Those are my 2 points.
Do we have any more comments?
Can I just say one
Sure.
thing? Even if you do veto this, and especially if you delineate things that you've talked about here, the council has every right to rework this and come back with another plan. So,
And
keep-
another.
It would be good to have, once you get to the full council, it'd be good to have feedback, whether, if it did get vetoed, whether there'd be any level that would be entertained by the RTM, is it like 100% opposition? Is it, we want just police and fire at 50% abatement, it'd be good to get the mood of the, yeah.
the mayor tried to put a $5,000 cap.
Yeah.
That's something, that got voted down. So, I mean, that was another option.
Yeah, I will never go for the 100%. That's too
And I'll
much.
never go for it with federal employees.
No,
Right, I think that's something that is one of the bigger points
no.
for me is that, look, we're full state infant, okay? There's plenty there. There's plenty of things I don't like.
My biggest stick is the remarriage.
Yes.
And
Yeah. Once you're remarried.
I appreciate your time, John. Thank you very much.
Sure.
I'm glad you were here to answer all our questions, and I'm gonna
Yeah,
make a motion
Once
to.
you're remarried, you lose all your.
I
One more
want to
question?
vote.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what I was gonna do. Take a vote. All those in favor
Of vetoing?
of vetoing?
Yes,
I
Recommend to veto.
Question to recommend.
Okay.
We'll go with aye.
Right, it's unanimous. We want to rewrite.
yeah.
Right, yeah, rewrite it.
Rewrite.
we should definitely, if we have obligations and authority to do something here,
Even if it's just
conflicting
taking a
with the
second,
council, we should do it.
just take a second look, like, review it.
If they want some input from some very knowledgeable people, you can ask.
I think that we did a great job here tonight. I think we did everything we needed to. I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. and I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
John.
Thanks a
Thank you.
lot,
Have a
John.
good night.
Really
Thank
appreciate it.
you.